Everybody, welcome from Rialto Beach in the great state of Washington. I am somewhere close to the Quillette tribal community and also two little towns that you may or may not have heard of before. La Push, Washington and Forks, Washington. Now, for those of you who may have had teenage daughters or teenagers around your house over the last few years, perhaps you recognize those names being from the book series and movie series Twilight. And so what I've done, I've conducted some peer-reviewed research, because that's the only way we can get facts here, on La Push and Forks as it relates to Twilight. So for those of you who are familiar with these, perhaps you can back me up on these. One of the key things I think that's important for you to understand on this one is if you were part of the werewolf community or on Team Jacob. From Team Jacob's perspective, you were here in La Push. Now, if you were part of Team Edward was over in, and Team Edward, by the way, from what I have researched, was the vampire love interest there. That was over in Forks. So, Twilight, lovely place. I wish I could tell you the story about how this little community has really leveraged this thing. Perhaps I can do that next week. I'm here for a couple of weeks. So that's where I am this week for MSOM 602 Servant Leadership. So let's talk a little bit about Lesson 4 from a recap perspective, and then I'll introduce Lesson 5 for you for the next week. Lesson 4 started off with a discussion that I really wanted to do in the middle of the week. So the middle of the lesson. And so this is lesson 4, and we talked about Drew Dudley and his idea of leadership at the first week. So we're halfway through, and I want to see if your thoughts have changed any. And so I presented the concept to you: is leadership caught or taught? In other words, are you born with leadership tendencies, or can you learn leadership tendencies? And so it was really interesting to read the discussions. I haven't read all of them yet. I'm kind of halfway through the week. I'm recording this a little bit early. But some of the thoughts, opinions on those are very interesting. As you'll see in my comments on the discussion board, I tend to be more in the caught or you're born with those camp. But again, I haven't conducted in-depth research on that to determine overall ideas. But my thought is that we are all equipped with certain strengths. We are given certain strengths that we need to leverage. And some people simply have like management strengths versus leadership strengths. And again, there are differences there. So I appreciate your focus on those. And a lot of the way that you approach that question will depend upon how you define leadership. And so if you look at leadership as individual activities, much the same as what Drew Dudley did in Lesson 1, then perhaps you're going to think that it can be taught versus caught. And so, again, it just depends on your definition of leadership, and hopefully you drew the connection between those two. The second thing this week was the second submission for the memo exercise. Remember, the first one was on what is servant leadership. And now that you've defined that a couple of weeks ago for your employees, now you're presenting them, why are we moving to servant leadership? This is a critical piece, because all too often today in business leaders forget to explain why. They forget to tell people why you're doing certain things. And so if there's one overriding message that comes out of this, as you begin to move in your careers into levels of increasing responsibility and management, never forget the importance that is played upon explaining why you're doing things. Because if you don't define why you're doing it, the individual employee will define it for themselves, and many times it's going to be wrong. And so I would encourage you to take away from this the importance of understanding and communicating why the organization is moving in directions that perhaps people don't understand. They may not like it anymore, but at least they won't question it, and at least they won't question your thoughts, because they'll operate from a position of knowledge about it. They may question the technique you're using, but at least they'll understand your thoughts on that particular topic. So that's why. And then the course project this week looked at quite a few different things. The course project is really half of your paper. It's half of your narrative. And so what you're going to find in my grading on this is I focus a lot on form, format, as well as content. And so I would encourage you to look at all the comments that I make on your papers, and then you have the ability to correct those before you submit the final part, our part 3 in lesson 7. If you have any questions about those, I would encourage you to reach out to me, call me, send me an email, because I want to make sure you fully understand what I'm talking about in those as well. So that was the first submission, or really half of the narrative for your course project. That's lesson 4. All right, let's move on to lesson 5. Lesson 5 begins with a discussion question about leadership point of view. Now, you did some reading on leadership point of view this week, and I think it's very important for you to begin to understand how other people have influenced you and your leadership point of view. Many of these aren't just you woke up one day and had that, had a particular point of view on a leadership topic. You need to understand you're influenced by prior bosses, you're influenced by spouses, you're influenced by pastors, you're influenced by many different people. They may not hold the entire viewpoint that you have, but certainly some of the things that they say, some of the things perhaps that you've read. Maybe there's an author that you have who you've followed quite a bit. I happen to have Marcus Buckingham, who really focuses on strengths that I have really used to help develop my leadership point of view over the years. And so perhaps those are people or individuals, situations, circumstances that have influenced your leadership point of view. So that's what I want you to talk about in the discussion board this week. And then the case study this week is a very interesting one. It happens to be to do with Alan Lurie, who is giving a commencement speech to a group of Jewish rabbis. And so I want you to really dig deep in that story. Just don't talk about the surface things. Just don't repeat what Alan said in his book on this particular topic. Really focus on perhaps the underlying meanings, the things that you take away, the things that are applied. Again, you need to write this in third person, not first person, so the applications of those need to be general for the populations that are reading them, and not I think or we think or you think. So this needs to be written again in third person, but look at it from that perspective. This is one of my favorite questions and case studies that we have in the course, simply because it causes people most of the time to think very clearly about their thoughts in that area. Okay, so that is the course project for this week. The memo exercise gets wrapped up this week, and so we've done what is servant leadership. We've done why is the organization moving to servant leadership, and then this week we wrap it up with the so what, or what does this mean to the employer? What does it mean to you? So if we move to a servant leadership model, is it something extra I'm going to have to do? Am I going to get any benefit from that as an employee? And so I'm a firm believer that unless we apply changes to individuals so that they can see specifically how it is going to impact them, and from a good perspective as well, then I think we've missed out on those opportunities. So again, this will be the final memo exercise. It's the final in the 3. So you've done the what, the why, and now it's the so what, or what's in it for me as an employee. All right. Hope you all have a great week. I'm going to be here for, a couple weeks. So you'll probably see another one from somewhere here in the Twilight series. I've got some cool things to explain about the place where they had the Cullen House. Again, from my research, I didn't see the movies. Because that's actually where we're staying. So I'll talk to you soon. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, make sure you get in touch with me. Thanks. Have a great week.